Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got an H&K P30sk. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Manta sacks and core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. Technically this is actually an SKS, even though it says SK, because it has the thumb safety. This also has the V3 trigger, and on these H&Ks, the V number isn't like a generation or a version or a revision of the gun. It's actually a difference in the fire control group setup, whether it's DASA, whether it is they've kind of got a specialty trigger, a LEM trigger, a law enforcement modification trigger. So the V and a number after it really denotes the trigger combination that you've got, but they're all of the same effective generation. So the V3 trigger is a true DASA. This particular variant seems to be less common, and the version with the thumb safety in the SK is only available with the V3 trigger. And part of that is because of the design of the way the thumb safety and everything works. And one thing you'll note is on the back there's this little serrated button, and that serrated button is a decocker. You pull it down. Instead of pushing it like a button, you kind of pull it this way. So if I have the hammer cocked and I pull the button down towards the bottom of the grip, towards this way down, it decocks the hammer, and it decocks it safely. The safety can only be the safety on this one can be activated whether it's cocked or not. If it is cocked, the safety is still just a safety. It does not decock it. So if you want to decock it, you would pull the button down and decock it. And one thing you might think about is, well, is it safe to have your finger back there? Yeah, it is, because you're not messing with the trigger. You're not going up anywhere near the trigger to do that. You're doing it all from back here. And of course, when you cycle it, it does cock the hammer again. Being a DA, you're in SA mode. You get a little bit of a take up, and then you get to the wall, and you've got a fairly light, right in the 5-pound territory, very short break. The reset is a little bit longer than you might expect for an SA gun. You kind of go out and you heard it click, and then there's take up to get back on the wall. So it's not a super short reset like you're used to in some others, where you just go back out the amount of travel and you're ready to go again. And then of course it breaks again. Now, because this is a DA SA, I can also operate it by simply pulling the trigger. The DA mode's a little bit heavier, around the 11-pound mark, but it's smooth and it's consistent. So it is easy to operate, and it is easy to stay on target. You can see the gun wobble a little bit because I'm holding it one-handed, but overall the DA trigger does not interfere with shooting the gun well. It has a 3-slot Picatinny rail, has serrations front and rear, and the serrations at the rear are really robust, large serrations. The ones at the front are a little bit shorter, but they're still taller than a lot of other manufacturers' serrations. Now you're going to see that it's a little bit stiff to use them because the hammer is down. If the hammer were back, they operate very smoothly. There's a little bit of lockup you're overcoming at that very beginning. When you combine that with the hammer down, it can be a little bit tougher to use these front serrations. But regardless of the state of the hammer, the rear ones are easy to use. And the slide is very smooth. It's a little bit heavier, especially that first time when the hammer's down, but it's very smooth and very easy to operate. This, being the SK, is meant to be a subcompact, so you get really a 2-finger grip depending on which magazine you've got in it. So I'm going to put the fleshest of the magazines. It's truly a 2-finger grip. If I put the pinky extender, notice the magazine release is a paddle, and it's ambi, so there's a paddle on each side. They're connected together, so I can use either paddle. As far as finger near the trigger, you're behind the trigger, so you aren't reaching out anywhere near the trigger. You come in behind the trigger and slide along the frame, and you can see that the whole finger is behind the trigger, so it is safe to operate these. With the pinky extender mag, you get a full 3-finger grip. It's a very comfortable grip. It does have finger grooves, and it also has additional capacities. So the first 2 mags I showed you were 10 rounds. This particular variant came with 2 10 rounds and a 13. There's also packages that come with 15 round mags. And one interesting thing about this gun, it's got the largest diversity of model numbers and packaging with different magazine sizes. So this one's 2 10s and a 13. They've got ones that are 3 10s. They've got them with just 2 magazines. Some come with the 15 round magazines. There's half a dozen on their site different models that are different by which trigger variation and which combination of magazines you get along with the sights, and I'll show you the sights in a few seconds. The nice thing about this is you can also use VP9 magazines, and they'll work just as well. I'm not aware of sleeves available for the VP9 magazines, but there very well may be. But it'll work with the larger VP9 magazines. So this particular one is one of the original 15 rounds. Now the VP9 ships with 17 round magazines, and they'll work in this equally well. So anything that'll work in the VP9 will work in this. And it's kind of interesting, the evolution of these. So it started with the USP, and then moved to the P2000, then the P30. Those guns were all hammer guns, all polymer frame hammer guns. And then they moved and created the VP9, which followed the P30, and the big difference was it went from hammer to striker. But we've had several reviews on the various VP9s. This particular one is an SK, so it is the same subcompact footprint that the P30 is. So here's the thing you can have. If you like striker guns, you get a VP9. If you like hammer guns, you get basically the same gun in the P30. The VP9s originally even came with the toggle release, and they went to the button. This does have replaceable back straps. I'm going to put it down to show you those. So like a lot of guns these days, it does have replaceable back straps. It's got the two that are, or the one that's on the gun and 2 more, but it also has these grip panels. Kind of like a couple of the, like the Smith & Wesson, which has a wraparound. These are actually independent, so it's like the VP9. And the interesting thing about these is you can put them in any combination. So you don't have to use, let's say, the large back strap and the large grip panels together. You can put them in any combination you want, smaller on one side than the other. So you get a total of 27 different combinations of grip panel and back straps, depending on how you want to customize this to your hand. So you can spend a lot of time getting this gun to the perfect grip for your hand. And it's kind of interesting that they've got that. And that started with this gun and then carried forward to the VP9. And those come with it, and they're fairly easy to replace. To maintain this is also fairly easy, but it's a little different. So there's a little button here that is actually an arm connected to the slide stop slide release on this side. Kind of like the CSX from Smith & Wesson, except done right. So what you would do is you would pull the slide all the way back till this large notch at the front lines up with that little square block, and then just reach over with your finger and push it, and it moves a little bit, and then I can grab it and pull it out, and you'll see there's a little red mark, and that red mark tells you that it's out. No tools required, and then it should just come right apart. Every once in a while it'll stick a little bit, but it comes right apart. So it's a full toolless disassembly, and now at this point you'll see that this slide stop slide release is kind of working. It's a little bit loose because of course with that pin through it's how it's meant to work. This slide stop slide release on this side does work well when it's properly assembled, and unlike the CSX where you had to pound it out with a hammer and a pick and then pound it back in, this one is all smooth and slides very easily, no tools. Nice robust rails at the front, all part of the locking block assembly. Smaller rails at the rear, but they are steel and they are nice and strong, but they're a little bit thinner than some others. And kind of a large part of the polymer frame here, and then the fire control group, and of course this is a hammer gun. Kind of an interesting setup for the guide rod. So it's got this hook on it, and this hook hooks in here. And I'll show you that when I go to put it back together again. But it's kind of an interesting setup for the barrel lockup. And then you have the 3.27 inch barrel. And this one is polygonal rifling, and it's cold hammer forged. So now the polygonal rifling is, you're used to it on Glocks and Walthers and a few others, and of course this is chambered 9mm. But a lot of other guns, it's less common. So it does have the polygonal rifling. And a well done, well machined slide. Here's the piston for the drop safety. So this is designed to be a drop safe gun. Combine that with the thumb safety and you've got all the safeties that you could really be used to. And overall, well done. You would expect that from H&K. So to put it back together, put the barrel back in. Oh, real quick before I show you that. It's got a kind of a wide bell-shaped polished, machine polished feed ramp. So it's not a mirror polish, but it's really well polished. And this at the range ate everything that we wanted to feed it. When you go to put the guide rod back in, you need to make sure this hook is facing the barrel. So it's not this way, it's this way. And you line it up and it just kind of snaps in place. And it does sit there well. It doesn't want to keep popping out, but you do want to make sure that you've got it nicely centered. So you see I've got it nice and centered, and see a little bit of a gap. It's all black in there, so of course it's harder to see, but it hooks well in there. Get a little bit of light in here because it's actually pretty easy to see it if I can get some light on it. You see where it kind of hooks at the back of the barrel. Turn it where I can get the light in there. So it's a different setup, and as it cycles, it'll move forward and catch in this hook up front. It's a little bit different setup than you're used to, but it's easy to work with. It's proven to be reliable. To put it back together, you just slide it back together, and this is where you can get a little bit hung up. If you don't have it centered perfectly, it will have a tendency to hang up going back together. There it goes. Now to put it back into service, you again bring the slide all the way back, line up that notch, just push this in. It goes all the way in and back. No hammers, no tools, no bending splines. It all just goes back together nice and smooth and easy. So it's a different takedown. You just got to get used to it. But other than that, it's easy to work with and live with. This particular version has night sights. So they've got a ring, kind of a green ring around the front sight. And the back ones kind of have a whitish background to them. They tended to be a little easier to see at the range than some other normal night sights I run into. I do tend to like it better if they're either the tritium fiber optic or if there's a full ring around them. But I did find these were easier to see than a lot of night sights. Two other sight variations you can get on these. You can get just a white 3-dot, and you can get also the photoluminescent, the phosphorescent sights. They're kind of a yellowish, greenish color, and they glow in the dark. The glow-in-the-dark ones are kind of useless for a night sight. They don't really hold a charge for very long, but they are good at the range because they stand out and they're easy to see. But if you're looking for night sights, you actually want the real night sights. And as I'd mentioned, there's ambi features on the other side of the gun as well. So you have the ambi thumb safety and slide stop slide release, and none of these controls got in my way. So if I grab a hold of it, you'll see that both of them are up well away from where I'm wanting to be when I'm in the fire position. If I were in the safe position, then it may, even the safe position, it's up out of the way. And it's easy to thumb down. It's also easy to thumb up. So the safety works smoothly and easily, regardless of which side you're operating it on. H&K in general, when they design something, they do design it well, they machine it well. They manufacture for a lot of other agencies and militaries in the European area. Even the ambi slide stop slide release, if I lock it up and I'm going to restrain the slide, but the one that you would expect to work works. And the one that on many guns doesn't work, on this one works perfectly well. No bending, no flexing, just gave it a touch and it did what it needed to. And again, I just restrained the slide so it didn't slam forward. I didn't help the slide release at all. I just kind of prevented the slide from going forward too fast. I like this gun. I like anything that I've worked with from H&K. Let's talk about a little bit of dimensions while I got it sitting here in my hand. It's 6.42 inches front to back with the flushest magazine that's available, which is, in this case, came with it. It's 4.57 top to bottom, and it's 1.37 inches thick. A little bit thicker, of course. You got the safeties on both sides of this. This would not fit into that high-capacity micro-compact territory. This is your classic Glock 26 size subcompact double stack. So with depending on which magazine you've got in it, you've got 10 to 15 rounds in a magazine that does contour to the grip and fit with the grip. And then, of course, the ability to, if you're willing to let the magazine hang down, to use any of the VP9 mags as well. 23.99 ounces, 3.27-inch polygonal rifled barrel, all the kind of the features you would want if you're looking for a subcompact size gun like this, but you happen to like DASA, you can carry it cocked and locked if you choose, or you can carry it decocked, locked or not locked, your choice. Carry this thing however you want. So if you're a fan of hammer guns, especially like the DASA triggers, this would be a good choice for concealed carry. And unlike a lot of the DASAs that are out there that are larger and heavier, this is actually in the same kind of weight and size territory as many of the others out there. Now we of course need to talk about the one negative of these. H&K is proud of their guns. These go from the mid-8s to almost 1,000, depending on which variation you get, which combination of magazines, trigger, sights. They even have a version with a bobbed hammer. So it just, instead of having a hammer spur, it's a flush hammer. So they're pricey. They're good quality. They're very reliable. Every H&K I've had has worked from round 1 to I was done with it. But you will be paying a little more than you would if you were just picking up a Glock. Beyond that, they are good guns, and I do recommend this and others like it, especially depending on what it is that you like. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Getter, Rumble, pretty much everywhere. And thank you.